like to open again the voice of the silence, since the cross symbolizes sacrifice. Probably the closest meaning that we have. But I would like to ask everyone present, what association do you have with the cross? Is it something happy, light, heavy? What feelings come when we speak of a cross? What metaphors or associations? Heavy.
The association for me is some sort of brutal thing, torture.
Torture, heavy. Mm-hmm.
Some conflict.
Conflict.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I know a person who once made a comment that I've never gotten off my mind. One person said that carrying a cross on one's chest in a necklace is analog to walking around with a necklace that has an electric chair. in the sense that technically the cross was the equivalent to the electric chair back then. It was like the worst punishment to a criminal that could be given at that time. And I'm not saying that that's what I think. That's not what I think when I see a cross, but it is a thought that I've never gotten on my head, because it actually makes some sense within that context.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So heavy, equivalent to electrical chair. There is even anyone else? Any other associations?
Some with hypocrisy, because of, I guess, the things that went on during the most popular, I guess, cross association times that people have. But then I think about like hip hop and Biggie saying like Jesus peace, and that kind of brings it back a little. But then there's a newer rapper, Kodak Black, that I like a lot. And he makes a comment. He says, "You don't even believe in Jesus. Why you got a Jesus piece?" And I like that he says that, because it kind of opens up the door to more questions of why, even in like the hip hop community and music industry, why do people do certain things? And is it to satisfy themselves or to like appease others and look the part?
Very interesting. Thank you. So the other associations with cross, we always hear the saying, bear my cross. I'm bearing my cross. So bearing the cross is basically suffering bonds of incarnations and suffering the karmic consequences. I'm bearing this karmic consequence. I'm going through life bearing whatever my karmic circumstances given me. It can be also trial of discipleship. I'm bearing my cross of going through perfections for basically moving from my lower self to higher self, of obtaining knowledge and understanding. Also, it can be the union of the lower self and the higher self. We are on the cross. We're constantly at the crossroads of our lower self and the higher self. And the ultimate meaning that can be given to the cross, it's the cross that Bodhisattvas bear on behalf of humanity. And this is the passage in the voice that I also wanted to come back to, is on basically reference to the Bodhisattvas wearing the cross and the path. Okay. The Shagna robe, this true, can purchase light eternal. The Shagna robe alone gives the nirvana of destruction. It stops rebirth, but all anew. It also kills compassion. No longer can the perfect Buddhas who don the Dharmakaya glory help man's salvation. Alas, shall selves be sacrificed to self, mankind, and to the will of units? No, O beginner, this is the open path, the way of selfish bliss shunned by the Bodhisattva of the secret heart, the Buddhas of compassion. To live to benefit mankind in the first step, to practice these glorious virtues is the second. To don Nirmanakaya, humble robe, is to forego eternal bliss for self, to help on man's salvation, to reach Nirvana's bliss, but to renounce it is the supreme, the final step, the highest on renunciation path. Know, O disciple, this is the secret path, selected by the Buddhas of perfection, who sacrifice the self to weaker selves. Yet if the doctrine of the heart is too high-winged for thee, if thou needst help thyself and fearest to offer help to others, then thou of timid heart, he warned in time, remain content with the eye doctrine of the law. Hope still, for if the secret path is unattainable this day, it is within thy reach tomorrow. Learn that no efforts, not the smallest, whether is right or wrong direction, can vanish from the world of causes. Even wasted small remains not useless. A harsh word uttered in past lives is not destroyed, but ever comes again. The pepper plant will not give birth to roses, nor the sweet jasmine silver star to thorn or thistle turn. So when we go to Easter and the meaning of the cross, Jesus Christ was definitely one of the Bodhisattvas coming and sacrifices himself for humanity. And he is just the last one in line of Bodhisattvas who came to the world and sacrificed for the world. Now, when we speak of the crucifixion and resurrection and Jesus Christ, the entire story, it is better if it's taken as a symbol because it's full of symbols. The entire story is one big symbol. It's basically a divine mystery unfolding in front of us rather than picturing the crucifixion cross like electrical chair and the man being stretched and the physical pain. Whether this happened or not, the divine mystery that we're given through this is quite different in depth and meaning. And would like to take you to the very first mention of the cross in the Bible. And that will be surprising. And it's quite interesting interpretation. So we all know the story of Garden of Eden. There was Adam, there was Eve, there was the tree of life, there was the serpent, and the Eve got tempted by the serpent, and that was the beginning of the story. Not the end of the story, but the beginning of the story. Now, the most interesting part is actually on this topic in the Secret Doctrine. And let me find the passage. Okay. And I will read it verbatim. It's just way too good to retell. Because this is the first mention of the cross. And the cross is basically the tree of life. So we have the tree and the serpent. They're smiling at us. So this is the cross, the tree of life and the serpent on the tree. Or maybe it can be depicted serpent being sort of on the trees. There's many different depictions. So this is what it is from the Secret Doctrine, part 2. And I'll just read it verbatim as it's really good to pass. Now it may be comprehensible why the earliest initiates and adepts of the wise man, for whom it is claimed that they were initiated into the mysteries of nature by the universal mind, represented by the highest angels, were named the serpents of wisdom and dragons, as also how the first physiologically complete couples, after being initiated into the mystery of human creation through office, the manifested logos, and the androgen, by eating of the fruit of knowledge, gradually began to be accused by the material spirit of posterity of having committed sin, of having disobeyed the Lord God, and of having been tempted by the serpent. So little have the first Christians, who despoiled the Jews of their Bible, understood the first 4 chapters of Genesis in their esoteric meaning, that they never perceived that not only was no sin intended in this disobedience, but that actually the serpent was the Lord God. It was the Lord God himself who, as the office of Logos, or the bearer of divine creative wisdom, taught mankind to become creators in their turn. They never really realized that the cross was an evolution from the tree and the serpent, and thus became the salvation of mankind. By this, it would become the very first fundamental symbol of creative cause, applying to geometry, to numbers, to astronomy, to measure, and to animal reproduction. Now, when we try to add 1 and 2, this is the multiplication sign. It is the cross. So we'll come back to that. According to the Kabbalah, the curse of man came with the formation of woman. The circle was separated from its diameter line, from the possession of the double principle in one, that is the androgen condition. The separation of the dual principle was made, presenting two opposites whose destiny it was forever after to seek reunion into the original one condition. The curse was this, that nature, impelling the search, evaded the desired result by the production of a new being, distinct from that reunion of oneness desired, by which the natural longing to recover a lost state was and is forever being cheated. It is by this tantalizing process of a continued curse that the nature lives. So this is a very profound passage from the Secret Doctrine. And when we look, basically examine what was said there, so there is a curse in the Garden of Eden. First, there is a tree of life, and there is a serpent who is the Logos, who is the Lord. And the curse is the separation into duality. It's separating androgen into female and male. So it's separation into duality that produces the unending desire of reunion and coming into oneness that we once were. So we forever try to achieve that. And the only way that we achieve it is actually through producing yet another life. So it is our children. Sad to see that we never really have that total reunion between male and female, but alas, we do achieve it in the children, and by that, we continue life. So we became the creators of life through that search of reunion within ourselves and coming back to the androgen state. So when we look at this, the deeper meaning of the curse and the knowledge and what it drives us to do is basically it's pushing us to achieve completion. So we got separated into the duality, we lost our androgen state, and ever since then, we are trying to achieve the state of completion, state of union. And here is another symbol of the cross and how it connects to our previous symbol, that all of the symbols actually connected, and it's hard to understand one without understanding the other. So if we draw a perfect cross, what it actually does, it separates space and time into 4 squares. So in reality, it is the square. And we studied square in the previous talk when we studied number 4 and square. So cross is separating space. It is the east, west, south, north. It's separating the time. It is the first quarter of the day, second, third, fourth. It is the seasons. So it's basically all of the attributes of the square applied to the cross. And within the square, cross is complete. There is a completion. There's completion of a year. There is completion of a 24-hour cycle. There is a completion of the way we divide space on west, east, north, south. So it is a state of completion. And we will talk what is the difference between cross and a square, because the difference is really profound, even so that there are some similarities. So when we look at the square, you can say the traditional religion, like Christianity or any other, is a square. And the reason I say it's a square, because it has a state of completion. There is a perfect, basically perfect story of what is and how it should be. There is a hell, there is we are born, we go to heaven, we achieve the perfect state, and it is eternal. So once we die, go to heaven or we go to hell, the state is eternal. And the same applies to the perfection in society. So the attachment to the idea that we discussed during the square talk of New Jerusalem. We achieve that New Jerusalem, that may be new social state, new political state, and it's a state of perfection, and it is permanent. We achieved it. It's a square. And same in us, that we're able to shed our lower self, and we're able to live in our higher triad, and we achieve that state. So it feels like it's complete. Now, the beauty of the cross that changes the square from that beautiful state of design where God is the architect and everything is a perfect design and we're just moving through that design, the symbol of cross is actually shatters that, because cross is dynamism. It is evolution. There is nothing permanent in the cross. So the very basic principle of the cross, of the two lines, this line is descending logos. This is divine coming to the material world. This line is matter. So it is the logos descending in matter. And I want to draw attention to the word matter because it's so close to mother. So it's logos descending in the mother, in the matter, in the physical. And it is the dynamism of logos descending in the matter and the man ascending into the divine. And what is interesting about this dynamism, it's never in the square, it's never complete. There is never end to this. And this is very hard to understand with our finite mind, within our finite physical mental abilities, is that if we say the ideal, if we are going towards the ideal, towards the target state that we perceive, that ideal is also evolving. So that the best description for that would be that we are becoming who we are. We always say we're becoming who we are. We are remembering who we are and that we are divine. But at this very time, the divine is becoming who it is. And that's infinite and endless. And our target of us remembering who we are is also not finite. We're remembering who we are in the moving target of who we are becoming what it will be. So the only permanent in this is the state of becoming. That there is actually no state of is. And it is basically an endless continuity of life, infinite expansion in space, and eternal expansion in time. So there is never one target once we achieve divine state or once we go to heaven. It is complete. There is no completion because divine itself evolving through its descendant matter. And it is infinite and endless. So the ideal itself is not set as it is in a square or in any traditional religion. It is evolving. And with this, we'll go to the meaning of resurrection. So what does it mean to be crucified and what does it mean to resurrect? And what we're basically celebrating today in the Christian world. Okay. Even a bigger cross. So if we, basically what we're celebrating in resurrection is the sacrifice and death. And that sacrifice and death is logos sacrificing itself into matter. It's not death, but it is transition from the spiritual realm to the physical. So it is the logos sacrificing itself into matter. In the Christian, so I will call it mystical drama, this is the Jesus Christ, the Son of God, sacrificing himself for the humanity in the physical. Then there is a hope and life. There is resurrection. So there is a sacrifice, and then there is resurrection. It is, the cross is almost like two-way highway. There is the logos sacrificing itself and descending into matter, and there is the man, Son of God, resurrecting into Logos. So Logos sacrificing itself to be in the matter, and then the man who exists in the matter is resurrecting through that process into Logos. If Logos never descended the matter, then there will be no man, and there will be no way for the man to connect basically back to the Logos state. So it is sort of the eternal resurrection that goes on and on through many lifetime and many manvantaras. And what is interesting here, that when we picture cross and the crucifixion, there is also a Rosicrucian tradition of the Rosenkreuz, of the rose in the center of this, because it's almost like the point of where the divine and the matter of us as humans meet, and at the center point I have ability to resurrect to our spiritual self. So the message in a way very similar to Christianity, but we understand that this is not really a physical crucifixion of the man who resurrected for us. He didn't resurrect for us, he resurrects because that's the mystical drama. That's what happens. Like there's no other way. You can stay in the matter and suffer, or you have to ascend to the next level. Now there's also interesting saying that basically the God sacrificed himself for our sins. So Jesus sacrifices himself, and by that we live. Now, if you understand this Logos is the one who is descending into matter, and that creates the man who is then ascending to Logos, then in reality, Logos is sacrificing himself for his own expression in the billions of us. So in a way, for his own experience of sins or experience, and the whole idea of sin should be really understood as expanding through karmic experiences. So it is Logos getting to know itself through all of the variety of these experiences. So it's in a way sacrificing himself for his own expressions in all of us. Now there is many different types of crosses, and that's yet another interesting topic. We'll be drawing a lot during this talk. So the very first cross was actually looking quite different. The very first cross looks like this. This is the Hermetic Cross. So it's a Hermetic Cross, or it's also called the Ancient Cross. And it is interesting that the resemblance of this cross was taken into the St. Andrew's Cross and also Union Jack flag. So it is the Hermetic Cross that basically uses it was used by the ancients to observe celestial bodies and observe the north, south, west, east. And they would basically navigate the celestial bodies through this cross. They saw the cross in the sky. And there is much more meaning to the Hermetic Cross, but I would like to take us to the next cross that is very interesting in the context of the symbols such as square and the cross, and that's Maltese Cross. Maltese Cross is a little difficult to draw, so it builds on the Hermetic Cross, but it has the square in it. So it actually has the triangles in the cross. So it has triangles in the cross that form a perfect square with the cross inside. So they're combining the two symbols here. The one that we see the most in religious symbology, especially in Catholicism and in lots of cathedrals and the Catholic closing is the fleur de lis. And I'll draw that one. It's quite interesting. It's the cross with the three like petals at the end. might look very heavy, very funny, but that's basically how it looks. So it's the cross, and there are three petals on each ending. Now, the deeper meaning of the cross, that was quite interesting to read about. So this is basically the Trinity, or the third logos, or in Christianity, Holy Ghost. And it is a threefold power of the Spirit flowing through the fourth corner, the fourth-fold universe. So there is a fourth-fold universe that was studied, that everything in the physical world is in a four, in a square. And this is the third logos, or the Trinity, that Spirit that is flowing through all the four corners. The other cross that we will devote the entire talk later is the ancient Hindu cross, and that's unfortunately was taken by Nazis, that swastika, and defamed basically for eternity. But this is also a form of the cross, and so here is the cross. And what the legs mean, it is the cross, the descent of logos into the physical in the perpetual motion, in the dynamism of perpetual motion and perpetual life. And then the last one that also will devote some time later is the Egyptian cross, or Tan, the one with the little, like looking like, almost like the human with a little circle on top. But now we'll come back to a Christian tradition and the Latin cross. So Latin cross is the cross that is not, that's have a longer bottom and a shorter top, and often associated with the crucifix itself. So it looks like a crucifix. The history of the cross, it basically was taken as a Christian symbol during Constantine. And what is interesting, that the arrival of the cross symbolized the hiding of the gnosis. That during Constantine, the Gnostics went basically underground. The mysticism of their knowledge was no longer available, and it was replaced with the very physical crucifix. The Latin cross basically is connected to what was mentioned in the comments, to the electric chair of the ancient world, the crucifix, where people at the time would be crucified, and it basically means the death of the body on the cross. Now, what we've studied, that it's actually the death of the body on the cross, or in Christianity, the death of the sun god on the cross. And when we look at the esoteric side of this, this is basically resembling the descent of the Logos, his sacrifice into matter. It is a dual symbol. It is, again, God descends to earth. It's the divine sacrifice. And it is the man ascends to God, the resurrection. So that's why during Easter we talk of these two things, the sacrifice and resurrection. But in Christianity, it's the same thing that sacrifices and resurrects. It's the Jesus Christ, who is the Son of God, who sacrifices, and Jesus Christ, who is resurrecting. And in fact, this is, in a way, in a mystical sense, also correct, because it is we are the gods. We descend into the matter, so we sacrificed, and then we are the gods, or sons and daughters of God, and we ascend through resurrection back to the Logos. The only thing is the the physical crucifixion and stretching of the body is a symbol. Like our cross, that's why we say we bear our cross. The actual crucifixion is existence in this physical world. And as HPB writes in Secret Doctrine, there is no other hell in the Theosophical understanding but this earth. So we are already in hell, and we're being crucified on our karmic consequences. Basically, the Easter also connected to spring solstice. That it is very, very aligned with the celestial celebrations. And we'll remove this and make it more a square cross again. So this would be Christmas in December, and this is where the sun is at its most southern point. Then it resurrects into the spring solstice. Then we reach summer solstice, and then it's starting to die. So now it's in a northern point. Now it's starting to die and come back to the December to Christmas. So in a way, this is also a symbolism of the solar cycle. It is the death and resurrection of the sun. And it's interesting that both Christmas and Easter are completely connected to the cross of the seasons and solstices. So this is yet another cross. That's the solar cross. When we come back to the crucifix itself, and it was interesting that I think that comment about the electric chair also will stay with the student. That crucifix with the man, with basically with Jesus Christ outstretched, and you'll see these little crosses with the man on them. The first time it was actually found in archaeology was in a 7th, somewhere 6th, 7th, 8th century. That didn't quite date it, somewhere around 7th century. And it was given by Pope Gregory to Queen of Lombardy. So actually it is like 7 centuries after the death of Christ where Christianity picked up the symbol of the crucifix itself. That before it had much more symbolic meaning before they actually attached the man in the matter on the cross. The 2 lines, in a very simple terms, if you want to look at the lines, it's basically a union of the infinite soul and infinite matter. So it's a union of infinite divine with the infinite physical. And it is also interesting that there is, we do sort of like a sign of the cross. Like it's very popular in Christianity. If people go to church, they would put the sign of the cross. And when they do this, I had to look this up to be correct. The hand goes up and it says to the Godfather, and it's the upper chakras. This is basically connecting us to the divine. Then it goes to the heart, and heart, again, the Rosicrucian symbol, the connection of the divine and the matter, and then to the left and right, and this is basically in space, in infinite space, in the square. So in the name of the Father, that is divine. The Son, that is man descended in the matter, and in infinite time and space. And what is interesting, it was interesting to see that the sign of the cross was actually used before Christianity by the adepts, and it was called crests. They were putting the crest as it was basically identifying secret sign among the adepts to recognize each other. So that's about the cross. And before we finish, I've pulled in a song that everybody knows. And I'll read the gospel song that probably many of us heard at church. And I would invite you to look at it in a different way, and we'll a little bit decipher what can it actually mean in the esoteric sense. On a hill far away stood an old rugged cross, the emblem of suffering and shame. And I loved that old cross, where the dearest and best for a world of lost sinners was slain. So there is an old rugged cross. It's emblem of suffering and shame. So when we look at this in an esoteric meaning, it is the material world. It is the emblem of suffering and going through our karmic consequences. And on this cross, the dearest and best was slain. It wasn't slain, but the logos descended into the matter. So by that, giving hope of our ascension. So the next one, even more telling. This is my favorite four-liners. So I'll cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown. So this is what we're all working on, to basically lay down the trophies at the cross. And the trophies are the learnings, the perfections we achieve through our karmic consequences. Each little victory is our trophy in ascending to a higher self and coming back to who we are, our divine state. So we lay these trophies at the cross and we exchange it for a crown. So this is the process of the man's resurrection back to the divine. So one day through karmic experiences, we will ascend and resurrect into the our divine state. Oh, that old rugged cross, so despised by the world, has a wondrous attraction for me. For the dear Lamb of God left his glory above to bear it to dark Calvary. So again, this is about the descent of Logos. In that old rugged cross, stained with blood so divine, a wondrous beauty I see. For 'twas on that old cross Jesus suffered and died to pardon and sanctify me. This is also interesting. We always hear the language of divine blood, stained with divine blood. Well, divine blood is a symbol of matter, of being physical, of being in this physical world. So it is the Logos becoming a man, descending into the matter. And this line about that Jesus suffered and died to pardon and sanctify me, again, the Logos descended in the matter to sanctify its own expressions, as we are not separate from it. And to that old rugged cross I will ever be true, its shame and reproach gladly bear. Then he will call me someday to my home far away, where his glory forever I'll share. And this is where we talked about the square, the home far away that is permanent, and the glory that I'll share permanently, when in fact, so to say, the he is evolving in his own understanding and who he or she it is, just as we are evolving in who we are. So however we take it, the good news or the bad news, that home is always far away, because it's ever evolving in infinite that we probably will never understand. So I will conclude here in case there are any questions about that old rugged cross.
You know, Theosophy says we're on this obligatory pilgrimage, maybe around the cross, to raise up. We get involved in matter and then to raise it up. So it's sort of like a descent and reascent. I usually think of it as a circle, but it could be thought of in terms of the cross, as you were saying. And then at night we dream, and then we go into deep sleep, where Theosophy says we become one with the higher self again, who we really are. Could that also be the cross? Could that symbol be used there as well?
This is a very, very interesting note, because that takes us to the, we didn't talk much today about it, but that's the Tao. This is the Egyptian cross with the circle. And in Secret Doctrine, there is an entire chapter called Circle and the Cross. It's quite heavy. I started reading it and I was like, not for this talk. Talk of its own. Yes, definitely. Okay.
A cube unfolds. It unfolds into 6 squares that form a cross.
Mm-hmm.
And the 6 sides of that is somehow representative of like 6 race.
Mm-hmm. This is so interesting because I read about it and I wanted to present it, and my mind cannot see how it unfolds. Would be good, yeah, because I read and I said, no, I cannot talk about something I cannot see. Yes, this is true. Yeah, it was also mentioned. So anyone feels a little lighter about the cross now?
I thought it was particularly interesting things that I learned that I didn't know. Matter and mother, that was particularly illuminating. That's a really good one. And then also just the whole symbolism with number 1, the cross and the linkage to the symbol of addition. That was really big. Literally how these symbols are truly ingrained at every level of our psychology and culture, and you know, the way that we represent the reality that we perceive. And then just also the, you know, literally like these, how the cross draws these linear intersecting lines, how you described of matter and space and time, you know, the coming together of space and time, of logos into matter. That all for me was new information and was very illuminating.
Yes, beware.
Yeah, it was,
Sorry, I didn't know I was unmuted, but yes, beware of non-Euclidean geometry. It will disappear right before your very eyes. It's nowhere and everywhere.
yes. Yeah. For this plus sign was really interesting, because when you connect it to the Adam and Eve and the Garden of Eden, like, okay, we became dual and we forever tried to reach that state of oneness, and Adam plus Eve equals 3. So this is simple arithmetic, but it's the plus sign, it's the cross. It's almost like subliminal messages. We don't notice, but they're there. And in geometry, too, I'm just not blessed to see geometry, but yeah. And it's way, way predates Christianity. So Christianity sort of a little bit misunderstood the cross and put it on the crucifix, the said human creation.
This is maybe getting a little off, but related. Is the serpent actually symbolized by like 0? Like when he's biting his tail, he's like taking the form of the. Sorry to focus on. The serpent can be the cross, but also 0.
Yeah.
There's also the caduceus, which is like the medical symbol, which is the Hermetic Cross with the serpent.
Yes.
Coiled around,
Yeah. It also may be connecting to that Garden of Eden. This is the first time I read about it. This was fascinating. I never saw Tree of Life and Serpent as a cross. But not a mistake that, yeah.
I was gonna mention that from the apostles, I believe it was Peter who requested to be crucified in reverse, because he didn't feel worthy of dying the same way that Jesus Christ died. And there's another apostle, I can't remember who was it, that was crucified, but in an X position instead of a plus sign. Also for the similar reason, because he felt he didn't felt his life should not end the same way as Jesus Christ. So that the crucifixion happened differently. There is a theater play called Titus Androgynous from Shakespeare, where there's a character I cannot remember the name of, a guy really evil. He's known for a quote saying that if he ever did one deed in his life, then his only regret is not doing worse stuff. And he was crucified, but in a different way, where there was a hole in the ground, and he was nailed to a cross, but then he is inserted with the cross into the hole, so it's even more uncomfortable. There were ways to do it even yeah. just since we're talking given the today and what it represents, it's good to reconsider variations of crucifixions, because it's not that one way is not the only way that has ever been done. It's been done in different methods.
Now, the thought that you're sharing brought, can you imagine a bigger hell? No, I don't think there is a bigger hell, so it's definitely nothing to fear of doing this to each other.
Yeah. I believe some Roman Colosseums used to be at nighttime. There was no electricity back then, but the way they used to lighten up the Roman Colosseum was by putting Christians on fire, alive, being burned alive. They were live candles, literally. I'm not making this up.
Huh. Brutal. Yeah, again, it sort of resembles that we are in hell, so we are resurrecting from it to a higher state in spirals. That's important to understand, otherwise you may lose hope. Okay, so if there is no more questions or comments, we can conclude now, and then we'll proceed with the reading and at 12:10.
I have one closing comment. It's almost a joke. One day, a Christian and a Buddhist person see each other in a cemetery. Each one is bringing things to the deceased person. The Buddhist is bringing fruit, and the Christian is bringing flowers. Then the Christian asks the Buddhist, "But why are you bringing fruits? The person's dead. He's not gonna eat them." And then the Buddhist responds by saying, "It makes the most the likelihood of my person coming up, waking up from the dead to eat the fruit is as likely as your deceased person from waking up from the dead to smell the flowers you're bringing."
Yes, in the physical terms, definitely. We're not we're resurrecting through rebirth, but that's yet different resurrection. So, interesting. Okay, thank you for joining, and we will resume in 12 minutes.
Thank you.